I would like to share with my story about how I went from someone who wrote an editorial against how gays should not be able to adopt children to a very vocal and outspoken stray ally for homosexual rights and gay marriage. It was a years-long process, and one thing that I would like you to imagine as you watch this video is imagine that I am in the place of a parent or an older brother or a relative that may not fully understand your position where they are right now, but I want to say it gets better. I grew up believing Mormon, and so I never really thought about the Mormon standpoint on homosexuality. I just accepted that it was wrong, accepted that it wasn't the way it should be. At the same time, I grew up in a very non-traditional home, and I had a lot of struggling. I met my dad when I was 16. He was a homeless heroin user for most of my growing up. I remember meeting him once when I was 4. And so I never had that. My mom married a psychotic military police officer, so that didn't really help things. And so I grew up with not really having those, learning how to make those attachment relationships. And I kind of lived in my own world for a long time. But I went forward, went to college, and one kind of ironic point was on my mission, I made a very strong connection with a dear friend of mine, and they were about to make us companions, but they wouldn't because they were afraid I was gay, because I was too effeminate, and I was too expressive, and I hugged too much. So, heaven forbid they make us companions. And so I got home from my mission, and I worked for the University of Utah Daily Utah Chronicle. And even though I had started acquiring greater critical thinking, I still accepted the party line of homosexuality is wrong. And so I wrote a couple editorials about how gay couples should not be able to adopt children. And this is something that I feel tremendously ashamed of right now as I look back on it. And I want to say that I really respect those who are able to be fully believing Mormons and embrace our LGBTQ friends and family, and they are out there. I wasn't one of those. For me, it was the deconstruction of my worldview that led to me realizing there's nothing wrong with homosexuality. There's nothing sinful about gay sexuality or lesbian sexuality. And so that was part of my journey. And as I examined my own beliefs, I have become fervently devoted to speaking out against what I think are the ethical infractions of the LDS Church. And one reason why I want to stay affiliated with the LDS Church is so I can be an inside voice. And so I can tell my priesthood quorum that Prop 8 was one of the biggest mistakes that the church has made in the past 100 years. So I can tell my Sunday school class that a general authority who rejects his gay child is farther from the kingdom of heaven than the loving gay parent himself or herself who embraces their children. And I think this is the message of Jesus. I'm a New Testament scholar, and I think that Jesus would absolutely embrace all of you and would not judge and would not question, because the message of Jesus, the message of the Gospels, is that the details of your religion are not as important as loving each other. And if the details of your religion interfere with you loving, then you have failed. And so now I kind of get into trouble with all my Facebook statuses that speak out in favor of gay marriage and gay rights. But I hope that I have a voice. And I want to tell you it does get better for all of us. And not just for those of you who are going through it, but for your friends and your family members. I do think that sometimes we need to be wise and diplomatic and careful. I think that for many of us, there will be a breaking point between us and our family members and our friends. But I think that we can also own our own strength and own ourselves, and that we can live in a way that is integrity and is genuine to us, and that we can feel peace and empowerment. I think that it will get better with the church, even the Mormon church, because as much as the leaders are sticklers for doctrine and so forth, they are also extremely aware of social pressure. And I think the tide is turning. And I think within 10 years that the homosexual married couple will be able to be fully active if that's what they choose. And here is the final point that I want to make about how it not only will get better, it has gotten better. And that is because in this age of social media, the fact that you are watching this video right now is evidence of the fact that independent of what your parents do, independent of what your friends do, independent of what any organization or any religion does, you have this, and you can find allies, and you can find connections. One of my students talked about growing up in rural Ohio, and when he discovered he was gay, he had no one. He had no one he could talk to, and that the internet has become a lifeline. So a final reason why not only will it get better, and it can get better, but why it has gotten better, is because independent of what anyone else does, independent of what your parents end up doing, or your siblings end up doing, or any mentor, any institution, any religion, you can find the communities that you need for the support, such as this one. You can make and choose a new family and community if you need to. And so in that way, we can be the change that we so desperately need.